My name is Lucille. I am 58 years old and I built a hotel chain from nothing after my husband Thomas died when our daughter Elizabeth was just 5. We were once close, but things changed. This morning I received a text that broke my heart, even though I half expected it. It read, "Mom, we'd prefer you not attend the wedding." After 20 years of sacrifice, my only child erased me from her big day. If you're watching this from your own fancy hotel room, give this video a like and subscribe to hear how I taught my ungrateful daughter the lesson of a lifetime. I grew up in a small town in Nebraska where everyone knew everyone and dreams rarely extended beyond the county line. But I was different. I always wanted more. When I met Thomas in college, it felt like the universe finally aligned in my favor. He was handsome, kind, and believed in me more than I believed in myself. Our romance was whirlwind. We married 6 months after meeting, and 9 months later, Elizabeth came into our world. Those first 5 years were perfect. We were the family I had always dreamed of having. Thomas worked as an accountant while I stayed home with Elizabeth. We bought a modest house, took weekend trips to the lake, and spent evenings reading bedtime stories to our beautiful daughter. Elizabeth was the center of our universe, bright, curious, and so full of love. When she laughed, it felt like sunshine pouring through our home. Then came that rainy Tuesday in April. Thomas was driving home from work when a truck crossed the center line. The police said he died instantly. I became a widow at 30 with a 5-year-old who kept asking when Daddy was coming home. That night, after finally getting Elizabeth to sleep, I sat on our bathroom floor and cried until there were no tears left. But children don't wait for grief to subside. The next morning, Elizabeth still needed breakfast, still needed to get dressed, still needed a mother who functioned. So I did what many single parents do. I put one foot in front of the other and kept moving. The life insurance barely covered the funeral and 6 months of mortgage payments. I needed a job fast. I had a business degree but limited experience, having been a stay-at-home mom. The Pinewood Hotel, a modest place near the interstate, hired me as a front desk clerk on the overnight shift. This meant arranging childcare, a patchwork of babysitters, after-school programs, and occasionally bringing Elizabeth to the hotel, where she slept on a roll-away bed in the back office. During the day, I picked up shifts at a local diner to make ends meet. There were so many nights I came home exhausted, feet throbbing, only to find a note from Elizabeth saying she needed cupcakes for school the next day, or help with a science project. No matter how tired I was, I'd make those cupcakes or build that solar system model. When she asked why I never dated like her friend's mom, who also lost her husband, I simply said, "You are my priority, sweetie. There's time for that later." Despite the challenges, Elizabeth remained a sweet child. She excelled in school, made friends easily, and still curled up beside me during weekend movie nights. We had our traditions: Sunday pancakes, summer camping trips in the state park, and holiday cookie baking. I took photos of everything, determined to give her happy memories despite our loss. When I was 35, the hotel owner noticed my dedication and promoted me to manager. The modest increase in salary meant we could finally move to a slightly better apartment, and Elizabeth could join the soccer team she'd been eyeing. Still, I lived paycheck to paycheck, putting aside tiny amounts for her college fund whenever possible. At 40, a life-changing opportunity arose. The Pinewood Hotel went up for sale when its aging owner decided to retire. I had learned every aspect of hotel operations over the years and knew I could make it profitable with the right changes. With trembling hands, I applied for a loan using our small house as collateral. The bank manager, who had known me for years, took a chance on my business plan. The first year of ownership nearly broke me. I worked 18-hour days, handled everything from plumbing emergencies to marketing, and still tried to make it to Elizabeth's school events. Sometimes I'd catch her looking at me with a mixture of pride and resentment, proud of my determination, but resentful of my absences. This was when I first noticed subtle changes in her attitude. When Elizabeth turned 16, we had our first real argument. She wanted to stay out past curfew with a boy I'd never met. When I refused, she screamed, "You don't want me to have fun because your life is so boring." The words stung, but I attributed them to normal teenage rebellion. That year, she began comparing our lives to those of her wealthier friends, their vacations, their clothes, their larger houses. Despite our growing differences when Elizabeth got accepted to Princeton, I burst with pride. My brilliant girl would have opportunities I never had. The financial strain would be enormous, a second mortgage liquidating my small retirement fund, but I never hesitated. "You deserve the best education possible," I told her as we packed her dorm essentials into our aging car. What I didn't tell her was that I'd be eating ramen noodles for the next 4 years to make it happen. While Elizabeth embraced college life, I poured my energy into expanding the hotel business. The Pinewood had become profitable through renovations and improved service. Guests frequently returned, often requesting specific rooms. The positive reviews allowed me to secure another loan to purchase a second struggling property in a neighboring town. Long days stretched into longer nights. I developed systems-trained staff and personally inspected rooms to maintain quality standards. On weekends, I took online courses in business management to sharpen my skills. When I called Elizabeth each Sunday, her responses grew increasingly brief. "Busy with study group, Mom," or "heading to a social event. Can I call you tomorrow?" Tomorrow rarely came. During her sophomore year, Elizabeth mentioned making friends with students from wealthy backgrounds. "Samantha's father owns a tech company, and Jordan's mom is on the board of 3 major corporations," she explained with barely contained excitement. When she mentioned me to these new friends, she began referring to me as in hospitality management, rather than a hotel manager. Then came James, her first serious boyfriend, whose family owned properties in the Hamptons and Manhattan. Elizabeth spent Thanksgiving of her junior year with them, sending me photos of their oceanfront home, decorated by a professional stylist. "Maybe next year we can have a real Thanksgiving like this," she texted. I stared at my modest table set for one and swallowed my hurt. When she did come home for brief visits, Elizabeth brought subtle criticism. "Mom, have you thought about updating your wardrobe? Those shoes are so last decade." Or, "This house is so cramped. How do you live here?" I smiled through the comments, reminding myself that exposure to different lifestyles was part of the college experience. She would grow out of this phase. Meanwhile, my business was thriving beyond expectations. A regional hotel group approached me about selling, but instead I negotiated a partnership that provided capital for expansion. Within 2 years, we opened 3 more locations in neighboring states. I formed Royale Hospitality Group, using a holding company structure that kept my name out of the spotlight. I wanted our reputation built on quality service, not my personal story as a widowed mother who made good. The company grew faster than I anticipated. My accountant began using terms like multi-million-dollar enterprise and hospitality empire. Still, I maintained a modest lifestyle, reinvesting profits and focusing on growth. The only luxury I allowed myself was a comfortable office in our flagship hotel, the Grand Royale, a completely renovated historic property that became the jewel of our portfolio. Elizabeth graduated with honors, and I sat in the audience bursting with pride, yet feeling strangely out of place among the other parents in their designer clothes. When she hugged me after the ceremony, she whispered, "Please don't mention the hotel to my friends. Just say you're in business management." I agreed, telling myself it was her day, and I shouldn't feel hurt. She took a marketing position with a prestigious firm in New York. Our communication dwindled to occasional texts and monthly calls that lasted less than 5 minutes. When I suggested she might want to join the company in a management role, she laughed. "Mom, I have a degree from Princeton. I'm not going to work in some small-town hotels." Little did she know that by then, Royale Hospitality Group included 15 properties across 5 states, with plans for expansion to California and Florida. I decided not to correct her misconception. Perhaps it was pride or a lingering desire to have her appreciate me for who I was, rather than what I owned. Maybe I was waiting for her to show genuine interest in my life before sharing my success. Whatever the reason, I maintained the facade of being just a small business owner, struggling to get by. When Elizabeth called to announce her engagement to Andrew, a financial analyst from another wealthy family, the conversation lasted exactly 4 minutes. She described the princess-cut diamond, but never once asked how I was doing. I congratulated her sincerely, ignoring the pang in my heart. My little girl had grown into a woman who measured success by bank accounts and brand names, the opposite of everything I had tried to teach her. 6 months after the engagement announcement, Elizabeth called with an unusual request. "Mom, about the wedding," she began hesitantly. "We've found the perfect venue, but the deposit is quite substantial. I was wondering if you could help with the initial costs. We'd pay you back, of course." Without hesitation, I agreed to contribute $40,000. The amount represented less than a week's profit from my business, though Elizabeth had no way of knowing that. Our conversation quickly turned businesslike: bank transfer details, timeline, expected costs. The warmth that should accompany wedding planning discussions was notably absent. "We've booked the Grand Royale," she mentioned casually. "It's this gorgeous hotel downtown, very exclusive. Andrew has connections that helped us secure it despite the waiting list." I nearly dropped my phone. The Grand Royale was my flagship property, the crown jewel of Royale Hospitality Group. I had personally overseen its renovation and design, from the crystal chandeliers to the hand-selected marble in the bathrooms. Yet I said nothing curious how this scenario would unfold. After our call, I discreetly contacted my management team. Yes, they confirmed Elizabeth Jenkins and Andrew Hartwell had booked our presidential suite package for their wedding, a comprehensive plan that included the ballroom catering, guest accommodations, and every luxury we offered. The quote exceeded $250,000. Over the following weeks, I learned more about the extravagant plans through my staff. 500 guests, custom floral installations, a 10-piece orchestra, Michelin-starred menu customization. Elizabeth was planning the society wedding of the season, and she had no idea her mother owned the very walls that would witness her vows. The formal invitation arrived 3 months before the wedding. My name was listed among regular guests, no special acknowledgement as mother of the bride. The RSVP card included a note about the black tie formal dress code and a suggestion for appropriate gift values. I stared at it for a long time before placing it on my desk next to a photo of Elizabeth on her 5th birthday, gap-toothed smile, and eyes filled with uncomplicated love. We met briefly for coffee to discuss the wedding. Elizabeth spent the first 15 minutes scrolling through photos on her phone, showing me centerpiece options and bridesmaid dress colors without actually asking my opinion. Then she looked up and frowned. "Mom, have you thought about what you'll wear? The guests will be quite sophisticated." Her eyes scanned my simple blazer and slacks with barely concealed disapproval. "Maybe we should schedule a shopping trip with a stylist, and your hair could use updating too, something more elegant." I touched my shoulder-length gray hair self-consciously. "What's wrong with my hair?" "Nothing's wrong with it. It's just very small town, and the way you talk sometimes, all those Midwestern expressions. Could you try to be more formal at the wedding? Andrew's family has friends in very high places." I nodded silently, maintaining my dignity while my heart cracked a little more. The girl I had raised to value character over appearance was now embarrassed by my unsophisticated mannerisms. The wedding planner, Vivian, contacted me directly the following week, clearly uncomfortable with the situation. Ms. Jenkins, I understand you're contributing to certain aspects of the wedding. There are some decisions that require family input. When we met at her office, her expression revealed surprise. You're Elizabeth's mother I was expecting. She trailed off, but I could complete the sentence someone wealthier looking, more polished, more impressive. I attended one dress fitting at Elizabeth's invitation. The bridal salon was luxurious with champagne flowing and attendants hovering. Elizabeth glowed in a designer gown that cost more than my first car. She barely acknowledged my presence, directing all questions and comments to her future mother-in-law and bridesmaids. I sat quietly in the corner, watching my daughter twirl before the mirrors. As I waited for the valet to bring my car afterward, I overheard Elizabeth speaking to her friends outside. "That's my mom," she said in a low voice. "She's nobody important. Just try to make her feel included when you see her at the wedding." Nobody important. The words echoed in my mind during the drive home. 23 years of sacrificing everything for her happiness, and I was nobody important. 3 weeks before the wedding, my phone chimed with a text message as I was reviewing quarterly reports in my home office. I expected a question about table assignments or gift registries. Instead, I read words that stopped my breath. "Mom, after careful consideration, Andrew and I think it would be best if you didn't attend the wedding. His family is concerned about maintaining an appropriate atmosphere for their business connections, and we want to avoid any potentially uncomfortable situations. I hope you understand this is what's best for my future. We'll arrange a small dinner after the honeymoon." I read the message 3 times each word, a physical pain in my chest. After everything, after the years of sacrifice, the unwavering support, the financial contribution, my presence at my only child's wedding was deemed inappropriate. I was a liability to be managed, an embarrassment to be hidden away. Before I could formulate a response, my phone rang. Elizabeth's name flashed on the screen. I answered with a shaking hand. "Mom, did you get my text?" Her voice sounded rehearsed, detached. "Yes," I whispered. "Elizabeth, how could you—" "It's for the best," she interrupted. "Andrew's family has put a lot into this wedding. Their connections are important for our future. And the $40,000 I contributed—" The question escaped before I could stop it. "Well," she hesitated, "we've already used that for deposits, non-refundable deposits, so we'll still need to keep that. But like I said, we can have dinner after we get back from Bali." I sat in stunned silence, unable to form words. My daughter had not only uninvited me from her wedding, but intended to keep my money while doing so. The conversation ended quickly after that. Elizabeth had another appointment, she explained. Something about final menu tastings. That night, I cried for the first time in years. I pulled out photo albums tracing Elizabeth's growth from toothless baby to sullen teenager to the beautiful but cold woman she had become. Where had I gone wrong? Had my focus on providing financial security come at the cost of teaching her empathy and gratitude, or was this transformation inevitable once she tasted the allure of wealth and status? Morning arrived with swollen eyes and clarity. I had spent 2 decades putting Elizabeth first, and in return she had decided I wasn't worthy of witnessing the most important day of her life. Something inside me, perhaps the last thread of unconditional maternal acceptance, snapped. At 9:30, my phone rang again. This time, it was Vivian, the wedding planner. "Ms. Jenkins, I'm calling about the situation with the wedding guest list." Her voice was professionally neutral but tinged with discomfort. "Elizabeth mentioned there's been a change regarding your attendance. She also indicated you would still be covering the agreed-upon contribution, despite not attending." "Did she—" I responded calmly. "Yes, and I wanted to confirm this arrangement. The venue requires final confirmation of financial responsibilities." A moment of silence stretched between us before I said, "Vivian, I'd like to ask you something. Do you know who owns the Grand Royale?" I believe it's part of Royale Hospitality Group, she answered, confusion evident in her tone. One of the largest independent hotel chains in the region. Why do you ask? And do you know who owns Royale Hospitality Group? I'm not sure that's relevant to our discussion about the wedding, Vivian replied carefully. I think you'll find it's extremely relevant. I took a deep breath. I am Lucille Jenkins, founder and CEO of Royale Hospitality Group. The Grand Royale is my flagship property. The venue, the catering company, and the hotel chain that my daughter has booked for her wedding all belong to me. The silence that followed was profound. Ms. Jenkins, Vivian finally stammered, there must be some mistake. Elizabeth never mentioned. She doesn't know, I interrupted. She believes I'm still running a single small hotel. It was my choice not to correct that misperception. I see, Vivian said, though clearly she didn't. In light of recent developments, I've made a decision. Please cancel the entire event. Cancel? Her voice rose in panic. But Ms. Jenkins, we can't just cancel a wedding of this magnitude 3 weeks before the date. The deposits, the vendors, the guests. I understand your concern, I replied calmly. But as the owner of the venue and primary contractor for this event, I am instructing you to cancel everything. But ma'am, you're not the bride, she protested weakly. No, I agreed. I'm the one who owns the $40 million venue, the catering, and the hotel chain they booked. And I am canceling the event. After a moment of stunned silence, Vivian asked, what should I tell the bride and groom? Tell them there was an unfortunate scheduling conflict that cannot be resolved. All deposits from outside vendors will be refunded. All guest room reservations will be honored free of charge for those who still wish to travel that weekend. Ms. Jenkins, with all due respect, this seems rather extreme. Perhaps, I acknowledged, but I've made my decision. Please keep the details of our conversation confidential. Elizabeth will discover the truth soon enough. After ending the call, I sat at my desk, emotions churning. Had I gone too far? Was this petty revenge unworthy of a mother? But another voice reminded me that respect and gratitude weren't optional in relationships. They were foundational. Elizabeth had crossed a line that couldn't be uncrossed. I signed the official cancellation documents that afternoon, noting with irony that I was simultaneously the injured party and the authority approving the solution. Through it all, a strange calm settled over me. For the first time in years, I was prioritizing my own dignity over Elizabeth's demands. 2 days passed in eerie silence before the storm hit. My phone rang at 7:15 in the morning. Elizabeth's name flashed on the screen. What the hell is going on? She screamed before I could even say hello. The wedding venue called and said there's been a cancellation. They claim it's a scheduling error, but they won't explain anything. 3 weeks before my wedding. That's unfortunate, I replied calmly. Unfortunate, it's a disaster. Andrew's parents are furious. We've already sent invitations to 500 people. You have to help me fix this. I'm afraid I can't do that, Elizabeth. What do you mean? You can't call your hotel manager friends, pull some strings, do something useful for once? The words stung, but I maintained my composure. Elizabeth, there's something you should know. The Grand Royale belongs to Royale Hospitality Group. I founded that company 15 years ago. I own it, along with 27 other hotel properties across the country. Silence stretched over the line before Elizabeth managed a choked, What? The venue you chose, the one you didn't think I was good enough to attend, is mine. The $40 million hotel chain you and Andrew's family were so impressed by was built by your embarrassing small-town mother. You're lying, she whispered. That's impossible. I can prove it easily enough. Come to the Grand Royale. Ask for the owner's office on the top floor. I'll be waiting. I ended the call and gazed out the window of my executive suite. The city sprawled below morning sunlight, glinting off glass towers. Within 20 minutes, my assistant notified me that Elizabeth had arrived, demanding to see me. I asked her to send Elizabeth up immediately. When the elevator doors opened, Elizabeth stepped out, looking both furious and confused. She wore designer workout clothes and clutched her phone like a weapon. Her eyes widened as she took in the expansive executive floor with Royale Hospitality Group emblazoned on the wall behind the reception desk. "This way, please," my assistant said, leading her to my office. Elizabeth stopped in the doorway, staring at me seated behind an impressive desk, the wall behind me featuring photos of hotel openings, award ceremonies, and business magazine covers with my face on them. The truth was unmistakable. "How?" she finally managed. "All this time, you let me believe—" "I never lied to you, Elizabeth. You assumed I was struggling with a single hotel because that fit the narrative you preferred. You never asked about my business, never showed interest in my life." She collapsed into a chair, tears streaming down her face. "Why didn't you tell me? Do you know how I've been talking about you, how embarrassed I've been about my plain small-town mother, when all this time you were this—" The question ignited something in me. "That's exactly why I didn't tell you. You were embarrassed by me regardless of my success. You judged me for my clothes, my hair, my mannerisms, things that have nothing to do with character or worth. Would knowing I had money have changed how you treated me as a person?" Elizabeth's tears flowed faster, but they seemed more about her situation than genuine remorse. "You have to reinstate the wedding. Please. You don't understand what's at stake." "I understand perfectly. Your future in-laws have the appearance of wealth, but limited actual resources. You wanted this extravagant wedding to cement your place in their social circle. Andrew's family wanted connections to genuine wealth. It was a mutually beneficial arrangement, until it wasn't." Her head snapped up. "How do you know about Andrew's family?" "I'm a businesswoman, Elizabeth. I research before entering agreements. Their company has been struggling for years." The elevator chimed again and Andrew strode onto the floor, followed by his parents. His expression shifted from anger to confusion as he took in the executive suite. "Elizabeth, what's going on? Your mother works here." He looked bewildered. "She doesn't work here," Elizabeth said quietly. "She owns it. All of it." The revelation landed like a bomb. Andrew's parents exchanged glances charged with calculation rather than surprise. In that moment, I saw them clearly not as the social elites Elizabeth had described, but as struggling climbers desperate for advantageous connections. "Mrs. Jenkins." Andrew's father recovered first, extending his hand. "What a pleasant surprise. Had we known about your position, we would have approached things quite differently." "I'm sure you would have," I replied without accepting his handshake. "Just as I'm sure you would never have suggested excluding me from the wedding had you known who I was." His smile faltered. "There seems to have been a misunderstanding. Of course we want you at the wedding. Your family." "Am I?" I turned to Elizabeth. 3 days ago I wasn't family. I was an embarrassment to be hidden away." What changed, Elizabeth? My worthiness as a person, or simply my perceived financial status? The room fell silent. Elizabeth stared at the floor. Andrew looked increasingly uncomfortable while his parents wore frozen smiles. "The wedding is cancelled," I said firmly. "Not postponed, not relocated. Cancelled. I suggest you notify your guests promptly." "You can't do this," Andrew's mother interjected. "Do you know how this will look? The investments riding on this merger—" She stopped abruptly, realizing her mistake. "Merger." I raised an eyebrow. An interesting choice of words for a wedding. Elizabeth looked between Andrew and his parents, realization dawning on her face. "What investments? What are you talking about?" Andrew cleared his throat. "Elizabeth, let's discuss this privately." "There's nothing to discuss," I stated. "This meeting is over. Please leave my property." Mom, Elizabeth pleaded desperation in her eyes. You can't do this to me. I love Andrew. We can work this out. You can come to the wedding. You can sit at the head table. Whatever you want. The naked calculation in her offer broke something in me. What I wanted was a daughter who valued me for who I am not what I own. Please leave. All of you. They departed in stunned silence. As the elevator doors closed on Elizabeth's tear-stained face, I felt both vindicated and hollow. 23 years of motherhood had culminated in this moment of painful clarity. My daughter had become someone I didn't recognize, someone I couldn't reach. The weeks following the confrontation passed in a haze of work and solitude. I buried myself in business matters, reviewing expansion plans, and attending meetings that had previously been delegated. Sleep became elusive each night, bringing dreams of Elizabeth as a child reaching for me with trusting eyes. My executive team, most of whom had known about Elizabeth's wedding plans, tactfully avoided mentioning the situation. Patricia, my COO and oldest friend, was the exception. She brought lunch to my office one afternoon and closed the door. "You look terrible," she announced, placing containers of salad on my desk. "And you've lost weight you can't afford to lose." "And I'm fine," I insisted, though we both knew it was a lie. "Have you heard from her?" I shook my head. "Not directly. I received a formal email notification that the wedding has been postponed indefinitely." Patricia raised an eyebrow. "Postponed, not cancelled. Interesting." I picked at my salad without interest. "I heard through the grapevine that Andrew's family is trying to salvage the situation. They've suddenly discovered I'm worth cultivating as a connection." "And Elizabeth?" I set down my fork, appetite gone. "According to mutual acquaintances, she and Andrew are having problems. Apparently learning your relationship was at least partially a business arrangement can strain the romance." "You did the right thing," Patricia said firmly. "It was extreme, yes, but necessary. She needed to see the consequences of her actions." "Did I?" I stared out the window. "I keep wondering where I went wrong. How did my sweet little girl become someone who could text her mother not to attend her wedding?" "You didn't go wrong," Patricia replied. "You raised her with love and taught her good values. But at some point, people make their own choices. Elizabeth chose status and appearance over substance. That's on her, not you." The day the wedding had been scheduled to take place, I retreated to my lake house, shutting off my phone and sitting on the dock from sunrise to sunset. I thought about Thomas, wondering what he would make of our daughter now, what advice he would offer. The silence provided no answers, only space for grief and reflection. A week later, Elizabeth began trying to reach me. First texts, then calls, finally emails, each message increasingly urgent. I read them all, but couldn't bring myself to respond. The words seemed hollow, focused more on her disrupted plans than genuine remorse. Then came the package. My assistant placed it on my desk with a concerned look. Inside was Elizabeth's wedding dress, carefully folded with a handwritten letter. "Mom," it began. "I don't know if you'll read this, but I have to try. What I did was unforgivable. Not just uninviting you from the wedding, but years of taking you for granted, being embarrassed by you, and never seeing you for the amazing woman you are. The truth is, I lost myself, trying to be someone Andrew and his family would accept. I became so focused on appearances that I forgot what really matters. Andrew and I have ended our engagement. After the truth about your company came out, his parents were suddenly eager to welcome you to the family. It made me see how conditional their acceptance was of both of us. Then, I discovered they'd been pushing Andrew to marry me because they thought my family had connections they could leverage for their struggling business. When I confronted him, he couldn't deny it. I don't expect you to forgive me, but I want you to know I'm sorry. Truly sorry. I've been seeing a therapist to understand why I became so shallow, and status-obsessed. She's helping me reconnect with the values you taught me that I somehow lost along the way. The dress is yours to do with as you wish. Sell it, donate it, burn it. It represents the person I don't want to be anymore. With love and deepest regret, Elizabeth. I read the letter 3 times, tears falling onto the expensive fabric. Despite everything, she was still my daughter. The child I had rocked to sleep, taught to read, and comforted after nightmares. But she was also the adult who had wounded me deeply. Could those two realities coexist? Could forgiveness happen without forgetting? I called Patricia that evening. Elizabeth sent me her wedding dress and a letter of apology. And Patricia knew me well enough to hear the conflict in my voice. And I'm considering meeting her, for coffee, nothing more, to hear what she has to say. Patricia was silent for a moment. Just be careful, Lucille. Forgiveness doesn't mean allowing yourself to be hurt again. We arranged to meet at a small cafe, neutral territory. When I arrived, Elizabeth was already there, looking different somehow. Gone was the polished socialite with perfect hair and designer clothes. She wore simple jeans and a sweater, her hair pulled back in a ponytail. She looked younger, more vulnerable, more like the daughter I remembered. "Mom," she said, standing awkwardly. Her eyes were red-rimmed from crying. We sat in silence for several minutes after ordering, neither knowing how to begin. "I received your letter," I finally said. "And the dress." Elizabeth nodded, staring into her coffee. "I meant every word. I've been horrible to you." "Yes," I agreed quietly. "You have." Fresh tears spilled down her cheeks. "I don't know when I changed. When I started caring more about impressing people than being a good person. It happened so gradually. But looking back, I see all the moments when I chose wrong. Every time I dismissed you, every time I was embarrassed, instead of proud." "Why?" I asked the question that had haunted me for years. I tried to give you everything to show you that character matters more than money. I think, she hesitated. I think I was scared. At Princeton, everyone seemed so confident, so entitled to their place in the world. I felt like an imposter, the small-town girl whose mother worked in a hotel. Instead of being proud of my background, I created a different story. Then I started believing it. With each lie, each omission, I moved further from who I really was, further from you. For the first time, I saw genuine remorse in her eyes, not just regret for consequences. "What now?" I asked. "What do you want, Elizabeth?" "Just a chance," she whispered. "A chance to know you again, the real you, to learn about your business, your life, all the things I should have been interested in years ago, and maybe if you can ever trust me again, a chance to be your daughter." I didn't make promises that day. Instead, I suggested we start small monthly dinners, getting to know each other as the adults we had become. When Elizabeth asked if she could learn about the business someday, I explained that personal reconciliation needed to come first. Business would remain separate until trust was rebuilt. The drive home was both painful and hopeful. 23 years of motherhood had taught me there are no guarantees, no perfect answers, just imperfect people trying their best, sometimes failing, sometimes finding their way back to each other. 6 months have passed since that first tentative coffee meeting. Elizabeth and I have been slowly rebuilding our relationship, one careful conversation at a time. She found a small apartment, left her high-pressure marketing job, and started therapy to address the issues that led her to value status over substance. Our monthly dinners became bi-weekly, then weekly. At first, we stayed on safe topics: books, movies, current events. Gradually, we began addressing deeper issues. Elizabeth asked about my journey building Royale Hospitality Group, genuinely interested in the challenges and triumphs. I shared stories she had never heard, the near bankruptcy in year 3, the mentor who believed in me when banks wouldn't, the first major investor, who helped me expand beyond state lines. "I wish I had known," she said during one dinner, "not because of the money or success, but because your story is so inspiring. I could have been learning from you all those years." "We can't change the past," I replied, "but we can choose a different future." Last Thanksgiving, Elizabeth joined me at my home, the same modest house I've lived in for 15 years, despite my financial success. For the first time in 5 years, we cooked together, laughing over my failed pie crust and her overcooked stuffing. It wasn't perfect, but it was real. I've seen her grow in these months. The therapist helped her understand how her insecurities made her vulnerable to valuing external validation. She's learning to recognize her own worth beyond appearances and connections. Most importantly, she's developing the empathy that had been obscured by ambition and social climbing. After much consideration, I recently offered Elizabeth an entry-level position with Royale Hospitality Group, not in the executive suite, but at the front desk of our original hotel. If she wants to learn the business, she needs to understand it from the ground up, just as I did. To my surprise, she accepted without complaint, arriving early for her shifts and treating every guest with genuine warmth. My own healing journey continues. Through therapy, I've recognized my role in our dysfunctional relationship. By hiding my success, I enabled Elizabeth's misconceptions. By accepting her small cruelties without confrontation, I allowed the behavior to escalate. I'm learning that love sometimes requires difficult conversations, not just silent sacrifice. Elizabeth has met someone new, a high school English teacher named David, who appreciates her for who she is, not what she represents. When she introduced us, I watched carefully for signs of the old Elizabeth embarrassment apologies for his modest profession. Instead, I saw pride and genuine affection as she described his passion for education and literature. We still have difficult moments. Sometimes old patterns emerge and we must consciously choose different responses. But we're finding our way toward a more authentic relationship, one based on who we actually are, rather than who we think we should be. The most valuable lesson from this painful journey has been recognizing that worth isn't measured by bank accounts or social status. True value comes from integrity, compassion, and the courage to admit mistakes. Elizabeth is learning this lesson, as am I. I recently updated my will, naming Elizabeth as my eventual successor at Royale Hospitality Group, not because she's my daughter, but because she's earning the right through hard work and growing character. The company will remain in trust with experienced leadership until she's ready, if she chooses that path. To those watching this video who might be struggling with family relationships, remember that sometimes the hardest boundaries to set are with those we love most. Standing your ground doesn't mean giving up on reconciliation. It means creating space for honest reflection and genuine change. Have you ever had to make a difficult choice between enabling someone you love and holding them accountable? Share your story in the comments below. And if this video resonated with you, please subscribe to my channel for more real-life lessons from a woman who built a business and is rebuilding a relationship with her daughter. Thank you for listening, and remember, sometimes losing what you thought you wanted opens the door to appreciating what you already have.